There is a place on this planet where the Stone Age is still happening right now. Not as a museum exhibit, not as a reenactment, as a living, breathing, fully functioning reality. A tribe that has had zero contact with the outside world for thousands of years. No internet, no phones, no clothing, and anyone who tries to approach is met with arrows. Ships have run aground on its reefs, and their crews have been killed. Helicopters have been driven away with spears. And in 2018, a young American decided to go there alone, carrying a Bible and a kayak, and a conviction that he could change everything. What happened next shocked the world. But before we talk about him, we need to understand the place he chose to enter. Because North Sentinel Island is not simply a remote island. It is something that has no equivalent anywhere else on Earth. It sits in the Bay of Bengal, between India and Thailand, 6 kilometers wide, 8 kilometers long. Dense forest covers it completely from every angle, and inside that forest lives a tribe that has maintained zero contact with the outside world for thousands of years, the Sentinelese. Their population is estimated at somewhere between 15 and 500 people. That range alone tells you everything about the situation. Nobody can get close enough to count them. The moment anyone tries, the arrows start flying. The first documented encounter dates to 1867. An Indian merchant vessel ran aground on the coral reef surrounding the island. 106 passengers suddenly found themselves on a beach no outsider had ever stood on before they could understand what was happening. Arrows were coming at them from every direction. They survived only by fighting back with sticks and stones until a British ship rescued them a full week later. The captain described the Sentinelese as completely naked, their noses painted red, producing sounds unlike anything he had heard, carrying barbed arrows. 13 years later, British officials arrived armed and determined to make contact. They found an elaborate network of paths and villages that appeared to have been emptied moments before their arrival. Then they found 6 people, 2 elderly couples, and 4 children. They took them. The 2 adults died within days of arriving in Port Blair. The 4 children were returned to the island with gifts. It was not enough. 16 years after that, a Hindu prisoner escaped from the neighboring Great Andaman Island on a crude raft. He drifted to the shore of North Sentinel. The rescue team found his body on the beach, pierced with iron-tipped arrows, a message that required no translation. Nobody seriously attempted contact again for nearly 80 years. In 1974, a documentary film crew decided to break the silence. They sailed toward the island, carrying gifts of coconuts, knives, and cloth. For the first time in recorded history, a camera captured the Sentinelese on film. The tribe buried half the gifts in the sand and fired arrows at the boat. One crew member took an arrow and carried that scar for the rest of his life. In 1981, a Dutch cargo ship called the MV Primrose ran aground on the island's reefs. The only thing that saved the crew was that low tide kept the reef far enough from the shore, from what they thought was a safe distance. They watched the Sentinelese standing on the beach holding spears and bows, gesturing toward them. The crew was rescued. The ship was not. Its rusting hull remains on the northwestern shore of the island today, a monument to what North Sentinel does to those who come too close. Then 1991 brought something nobody had predicted. An Indian anthropologist named T.N. Pandit had been approaching the island and leaving gifts since 1967. Coconuts mostly, sometimes tools. 24 years of silent attempts. 24 years of arrows in response. Then, on the 4th of January, 1991, something shifted. Several Sentinelese ran into the shallow water toward his boat. Pandit climbed out, and for the first time in recorded human history, a person from the modern world made peaceful physical contact with a member of the Sentinelese tribe. The moment did not last. A young tribesman grabbed a knife and pointed it at Pandit's chest. The boat pulled him back before the situation escalated, but he returned several more times before retiring in 1992. What he had proven was a single clear point. Peaceful contact is possible, but it requires patience measured in decades, not days. The Sentinelese did not soften after Pandit left. In 2004, one of the most powerful tsunamis in human history swept through the entire region. The Indian government sent a helicopter to check whether the tribe had survived. The Sentinelese responded with arrows, spears, and stones. They refused rescue they never asked for. In 2006, 2 fishermen fell asleep on their boat, and their anchor broke loose overnight. They drifted to the shore of North Sentinel. They were never rescued. Their bodies were found buried in the sand. A helicopter sent to retrieve them returned empty, driven back by a volley of arrows. The Indian government formalized what reality had already established, a restricted zone, extending 5.5 kilometers around the island in every direction. Entering it is a criminal offense. No exceptions. The picture was clear. North Sentinel is not visited. John Allen Chau did not receive that message. He was born in Alabama in December of 1991. He grew up in a devout Christian household. From childhood, he was drawn to physical challenges, camping, rock climbing, kayaking. Over time, he fused his love of adventure with his religious conviction and decided to become a missionary explorer. In 2016, he visited the Andaman Archipelago near North Sentinel, and the obsession took hold. He read about Jim Elliot, an American missionary killed in the 1950s while attempting to evangelize an indigenous tribe in Ecuador, where most people would read that story as a warning. Chau read it as inspiration. He spent the following years building himself for one specific purpose. He studied sports science. He earned a certification in wilderness emergency medicine. He took courses in linguistics and cultural anthropology. He was constructing himself for this moment. On the 21st of October, 2018, he posted a photo from Port Blair. His family did not know he was planning to enter what he called the last stronghold of Satan. On the 15th of November, he paid local Christian fishermen to take him to the island illegally. Then he started writing. Day 1, 4:30 in the morning. He entered the Western Bay alone on a kayak. By 8:30, 2 armed Sentinelese were moving toward him fast, shouting. He grabbed 2 large fish and threw them toward them. He escaped. He described in his journal that he felt scared, yet disappointed they had not accepted him right away, noting he had nearly been shot. Day 2, he returned. He attempted to imitate words from their language. He wrote that they burst out laughing, almost certainly at him. He sang hymns. Then a young boy raised a bow and fired an arrow that struck the Bible he was holding against his chest. The pages stopped it. He survived. Day 3, his final journal entry. He described waking after a restless night and heading toward the island, hoping it would not be his last note. Then he wrote a letter to his family. He told them not to be angry at the tribe. If he died, he asked them not to try to recover his body. In the days that followed, the fishermen watching from a distance saw what appeared to be Sentinelese dragging a body along the beach. His family released a statement saying they had learned of his death and described him as someone who carried boundless love for the Sentinelese people. They asked for his memory to be respected. 3 months later, his father broke his silence in a different direction. He placed the blame on religious extremism. He said that fanaticism had led his son toward an end that anyone paying attention could have predicted. The world divided in response. Some saw a martyr who died for his convictions. Many saw a young man whose beliefs convinced him he had the right to penetrate the lives of a people who had chosen, with full deliberate intention, to remain apart from the rest of the world. And that tension is what stays unresolved. The Sentinelese did not ask to be saved. When the tsunami hit, they did not ask to be taught anything. They did not ask John Chau to come. Everything in their history, every arrow, every buried gift, every body left on the beach was a version of the same answer to the same question. Leave us alone,